I finally know it's possible. It's not something that's so distant. I now see that it's possible and that how I'm going to get there. Like that this is actually part of my reality. And there are specific things I can do that fit for my life, the season that I'm in, my season of motherhood, career, family, marriage, whatever it is. Like I can do this. And I want women to hear that. Like you can do this. You've done it, Erin. I've done it. I can name hundreds of women that have done it.
Yeah.
So believe that it's possible and then take action.
On today's episode of Empowered in Health, I have Dr. Kristen Strom here, and Kristen and I actually connected through one of my amazing clients. She knows Kristen, she knows me, and she's like, you two need to talk. You two need to connect and like get deep into what can we do to continue to empower women with this idea of taking care of ourselves, getting unstuck, prioritizing our wellness, and so much more. And so Dr. Kristen is going to talk to us today a lot about her expertise as a transformational life coach and really what she does to empower women to understand like we have to be taking care of ourselves in every aspect of our life and our health and so much more. So Kristen, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I'm just excited to share this time with you and to help listeners just to empower them to take the next step, whatever that means for them.
Yes. And, I know we talked a little bit before we hit record just about how much we want to really get this message out to women about how we really want women to understand that whatever's on your heart, whatever you feel like you're being called to do, whatever you want to step into, you deserve to fully step into that and to feel fully authentically like you when you step into that. And so, Kristen, I know you have a really profound story of where you were and where you are now and the work you're doing to really support women. So can you share a little bit more about that journey with us and kind of what led you to where you are today?
Sure. So I call myself a teacher turned professor turned entrepreneur where I do coaching as well as speaking. But I was a high school English teacher and then felt the call to become a professor of teachers. And during my PhD, I developed some pretty poor habits related to high stress, which included drinking alcohol, less movement, eating comfort food, staying up really late. I then had a third baby in the middle of it, which I never suggest doing during a graduate program, but I had a pretty intense experience with postpartum anxiety, which wanted me to like stay inside and not go outdoors. And so that was limiting more movement. And so it was just like this compounding effect of poor habits, high stress, a lot of responsibility, just the unknowns of the future in the midst of motherhood. And then COVID happened, right? So then more bad habits led to more bad habits. And I finally looked at myself in the mirror and also saw a photo of myself and I did not recognize myself. And that's when I was like, something needs to change. I wasn't yet 40. I saw my 40s coming and I felt this just deep like despair. Like, how am I going to get through the next decade of my life if I'm already exhausted, burned out, overweight, tired, my body physically hurt every morning. I was not looking forward to like going about my day. Yes, I loved my kids and my husband and my life. I loved my job. I was in my dream job at the time, but I'm like, I don't feel like my best self. So I have to start taking action. And all the things I'd been doing just were exhausting me even more. Like the intense cardio workouts, the HIIT workouts. I'd always just leaned into fitness, but I also wasn't watching what I was eating. I was trying to eat healthier, but I would like overdo it with like the heavy carbs and the alcohol and the other things. And so I really had to start to pay attention to the things that would actually move me forward and not exhaust me. And that's how things kind of started rolling with healthier habits.
I love that you're speaking to this idea of leaning in and learning things that actually fuel your body, gave you clarity, helped you feel energized versus more burned out. And this is a very common thing I think all of us at some point as women fall into as far as the habits we think we need or the habits we overly emphasize, which end up backfiring in some capacity. And I know I relate to this, Kristen. Like this is very much similar to my story of the different levels of postpartum that I've gone through. And I found myself in a really low season after my fourth baby. And kind of similar to you, like I was leaning on habits, but I didn't really get anywhere. And I wasn't really filling my cup the way I really needed to, and was really eye-opening to start to figure out how do I do this in a way that actually works with my body? How do I do this in a way that actually is going to serve what I need for the next decade of my life? And I just really appreciate your transparency around that, because women need to hear how we've gone through this and what they can do to essentially move past it,
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we think it has to be hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's a message of society too. It's like, we have to do the 75 hard. We have to show up at the gym at 5 a.m. every day, or these intense cardio hit workouts, where if you're already in a state of high stress, that's actually the last thing your body needs. And so because I was doing those things, I was eating more, I was more exhausted, I had more brain fog. I was not eating the right types of food to fuel that type of intense fitness level on top of the high stress and the other bad habits I had. And so things just were not working. And so it made me feel more like a failure and that it had to be hard.
Yeah.
And once I realized that it actually could be easier by slowing down, pulling the right levers, doing the right things in the right time, asking for help, I realized that I couldn't do it alone. And so I sought out health experts that could help me and customize it for my life, that I didn't have to overhaul my entire life, that I could actually make it work during a really busy season with children, with a professional career, with a husband that works long hours. I didn't have to change everything. I just had to make these very small changes over time.
So good. And one of the things that I appreciate most is how you're speaking about how it doesn't have to be hard. It can be these intentional choices that you make, but it can be also really small things that add up to big results over time. And, Kristen, I know one of the things you've shared with me here, but also just in our conversation before we hit record today, is about how women deserve to feel good, and how so often we can get into this place of feeling really, really stuck because we're a mom, we have a job, we have a marriage, we're volunteering, we're doing all these things, and we have these lists of responsibilities that we're diving into. And so because of that, we feel really overwhelmed. We feel really stuck. We feel like, how am I even going to figure out how to prioritize my health and wellness, or get to a point where I can take these really small steps that I know I need in order to feel better? So I'm curious, what would you say to that woman that's maybe feeling like that, or that person that's listening to this that is just stuck, doesn't know how to take forward steps, doesn't know how to move forward, and really wants to?
I have a few things that I would say. One is, like, if you think of yourself as a battery or a cup or a pitcher, right? There's that saying, you can't pour from an empty pitcher, but actually you can. And I did it for years. And that's what continued that process of burnout, exhaustion, resentment, the negative habits. And so take inventory, like, where is your battery level, or how full is your cup or pitcher? And if you are depleted, you have to start to do very small things to start to fill up that pitcher, because life, motherhood, career, family, circumstances require us to continue to give and pour. It's just part of life, no matter who you are. And for a lot of people, we can't just stop life, right? We need to do something within the season that we're in. And so it could be the small walk in the morning. It could be drinking extra water. It could be tracking your food, or looking at how much protein you're eating and just increasing that. It could be filling your cup in other ways, like spending quality time and being present with your loved ones, sending that text that you haven't sent in a while, right? Just small little habits, small little changes that you can start to do to fill your own cup, that as you're pouring out to others, you start to feel more like yourself. But first and foremost, you have to take care of your vessel, like your body. You can't expect to keep pouring when you're absolutely depleted, when your nervous system's a wreck, when you're not eating or drinking or moving your body in the ways that truly support you. And so first and foremost, that foundation has to be there. And so that's how my story started, was really focusing on my physical wellness, because I started to realize, if I want more energy, well, I have to figure out, how am I fueling my body for the energy and the performance that I wanted. The other thing I would say is ask for help. Realize that you can't do it alone. And for a lot of high achieving women that feel stuck, they feel stuck because they think they have to do it alone, or that there's so much information out there, they don't know where to start. And so when you can find trusted experts, when you can try different things in very small ways, realize that those small steps are going to lead you forward, but it has to be fit for your life and your circumstance.
Such a good point. And I think that's one of the things I love making sure we recall, and I want to recall it here because you just hit the nail on the head, is this idea of really crafting what works for you. and your lifestyle and your goals and your body and your mission or whatever it is. I think that's one of the places that a lot of women get stuck, or a lot of women get caught, is they get into this headspace believing that they have to adopt a plan that someone else is telling them they have to do or should do, or they're structuring their days because it works for somebody else. And that is the thing that can actually keep you stuck the most.
Absolutely.
And so you're
Absolutely.
so right in saying that. Like, we have to be empowering women to understand this bio-individual approach to so many aspects of our life is how we actually get rooted enough in figuring out how we move forward for us. And so I just appreciate you saying that, because women need to hear that over and over and over. It's such a good point.
Yeah, that personalized approach, and not just like the click and like check it off a list.
Yeah.
The personalized approach is really where it's at. And that flexibility that, this weekend might be a really hard weekend to do all the things I'm supposed to do, but what's the 1 or 2 things I can do? Yeah. Right? It might be hard for me to get my 40-minute walk in, but can I take a 5-minute walk? Can I take a 10-minute walk? Can I do 3 10-minute walks?
Yeah.
Right? So being flexible, realizing that a personalized approach is what is going to move the needle forward. And also realize that a lot of what we've been told over the years is that there's these programs that we attempt them, and because they're hard and they're not personalized, we're automatically set up to fail.
Yep.
We just are. And so we're left feeling like, man, I hit the gym for 6 weeks and that was great. Or I did this nutrition program for 6 weeks and that was great. But because it was hard, because it didn't fit our life, it was never sustainable. And so by the time you're done with that 6 weeks or however many days, you're left feeling like, I can't do this anymore because it was hard. It was not sustainable. It was not personalized. And then you give up and you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And then it's like, now what? Now I'm even more stuck and I feel even more like a failure than I was 6 weeks ago.
And that's so common for women. I know I've experienced that. And I think you can probably relate to that too, Kristen. Like, we just get into these headspaces where you're right. We feel like we're supposed to do something a certain way, or things are supposed to go a certain way. And when they don't, because they aren't personalized enough, we internalize that. And,
Absolutely.
One of the things you said that I love too is how we have to be reaching out for help and support. It is not realistic for any of us to believe that we should be managing the ship in all areas of our life completely on our own. And for whatever reason, high achieving women specifically really get into this headspace of believing we're just supposed to have it figured out. We're just supposed to keep everything on track. We're just supposed to keep it all together. We're just supposed to manage all of it. And so I would love for you to speak a little bit more to this concept of, why do you feel like high achieving women feel like they're supposed to do everything alone instead of asking for support or guidance? Where does that come from?
That's a really deep question. I believe that we were never given role models for asking for help.
Yeah.
I actually met with a woman about 2 years ago. She had retired and we met over coffee. And she says, I'm just going to say this out loud. My generation of women did not mentor the next generation. And she goes, now my retirement is mentoring young women, women in middle age, women building careers, collegiate women, because I realized that throughout my professional life, I had to hustle and work hard. There was a lot of competition. Women did not support women. And so she's like, I realized that we did your generation a disservice.
Wow.
And she's like, we did it all on our own, and that was not healthy.
Yeah.
And so when I heard her say that, it was this light bulb moment where I realized that we can do better. Yeah. There are women middle age that are doing better in terms of this concept of like a rising tide lifts all boats, right? That when we can help one another, when we can share our wisdom, our stories, our expertise, whether it's informally or formally, there are women that are, creating businesses and models and frameworks to help others with the problems that they had, just like you have done, just like I have done, because we want to give back and we want to empower women with this knowledge, with the hope and the inspiration that it is possible, because we've seen it for ourselves. Yeah. And I find that when you figure it out, I remember this feeling of, I want to go outside and just scream from my front lawn, it is possible. Don't give up. Ask for help. Yeah. And I also remember I was asked on a different podcast, what would you have done differently? And I come back to this all the time. I would have asked for help sooner. I would have asked for help for my mental health sooner when I was in postpartum anxiety. And I knew I needed to see a mental health professional, but doing so added even more stress to the stress I was feeling. So I would have asked for help sooner with that. I would have asked for help from a nutrition and fitness coach sooner, not just think that I had to figure it out. Yeah. And so I think we know better, but it's hard to do better. Yeah. And so I think it's that action piece that comes next. If you know that there's experts out there, do a little research, ask the questions. I mean, I always do a deep dive. If I'm going to work with somebody, I do a deep dive in terms of who are they? What is their client? What's their client? Who are their clients? Are there stories that reflect mine? And can this person actually help me with what I need? Yeah. And then inquire, do the discovery call, and take the next step and realize that you're worth it. That's another piece. It's like, you have to realize that you are worth it, because if you're not your best, you can't expect the best in your house, in your workplace, in your marriage.
We'll get back to our conversation shortly after this message. If you are an overwhelmed and completely confused mom who just wants a simplified, easy to follow, and understandable plan when it comes to their health and wellness journey, then you're in the right place. As a wellness coach, I focus most on empowering women to follow a highly personalized and bio-individual plan that actually gets you results and that feels sustainable for your longevity. I'd love to invite you to set up a free coaching call to talk about your health and wellness journey. Head to erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call today. Again, that URL is erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call. And to make it even easier, head to the show notes of this podcast and click free coaching session to set up your call ASAP. Now let's dive back into the conversation. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So many incredible truth bombs that I want to make sure we recall, because you shared a lot of amazing perspective in that, Kristen. And the first piece for me is just this idea of we really, truly cannot do it alone. And this idea of really getting to this place of understanding the value of asking for help sooner can be some of the most transformative work you can do for yourself. Mm-hmm. And the other side of that is going deep enough into remembering how worth it you truly are. Like the investment of time, energy, finances, taking care of your health, pouring into your relationships, perfecting your craft, your work, whatever it is. You need and deserve support to do that, because you are worth that level of support and compassion and resources, et cetera. And so I wanted to recall that, because those were the two most powerful nuggets I just took out of what you shared. And I want women to really hear this, because I know in the work I do, and I'm sure you see this too, women struggle with this idea of like, am I worth it? Mm-hmm. Should I invest? Is it worth the investment? What if I fail? What if I spend the money and I don't follow through? What if it doesn't go the way I thought it did?
The whole list.
The whole list. And we all do this because we've kind of been conditioned in some way to feel like, well, if I'm investing or if I'm spending time, then I better get this massive result, right? I better perform. I better show up. I better whatever expectation we've put on ourselves, right? And I've gone through this in my own journey, and I see this with the women that I work with, but also just women I talk to on a daily basis related to anything from health to work to relationships and more. And so this is kind of the next piece I'd love to unpack a little bit, is this idea of worthiness, right? Mm-hmm. When we think about taking time for ourselves, when we think about investing in what we need, when we think about asking for help, let's face it, most of the time that comes with getting out of our comfort zone in some way. We likely have to invest some level of money. We likely have to say something out loud that maybe we haven't said before. Maybe we have to do something we don't want to do, but we know we need to do. Yep. And it's that resistance alongside this narrative of, well, I'm not even sure I'm worth it, that just keeps women kind of in this chokehold. And I want to continue to unpack that and talk through it. So for the woman that you feel like can relate to this, who knows that she wants to and needs to take forward steps like this, but feels like this is selfish or I'm not worth it, what would you say to her?
I would say, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Like, if it all worked out, who do you want to be? And that's at a core identity level, because none of this works if you cannot identify with being a stronger, more resilient, healthier human being.
Yeah.
So who do you want to be? And this follows like a really popular coaching framework of the be, do, have. So who do you want to be? What does she do on a daily basis to have what she has? Then identify with that and let that version of yourself pull you forward. So if she is a woman that is energized, has a more balanced life, is more calm, more present, not highly stressed, is more fit in terms of like her body physique, has glowing skin, and can get through a day without feeling depleted, well, then there are certain things that woman does on a daily basis to be that. So backwards engineer. What does she do? What does she eat? What does she drink? How much? How much does she move her body? What does balance actually look like for that version of herself? Yeah. And then start to do those things. So it's this pull of the future of an identity of yourself that will then say back to you, yes, this is worth the investment of my time, my money, my energy, because I believe she exists and I'm going to go after her with everything that I have.
And so good. You said be, do, have. Is that the framework? That's so good. That's so good. And something that, again, can empower all of us to remember, if we think about who we are or who we want to show up or where we're being called to go, there are things we have to choose to do in order to get there. And that can be a really challenging path to unpack. I know it's been for me, and I'm sure it's been for you, because there's just things that come up that make us feel like, well, maybe I can't, or maybe I won't be able to, or maybe, again, I'm not worthy enough to step into those things in order to get me to this place I feel like I'm being called to go. And so I love that, the be, do, have. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure listeners are really thinking about that, because when you, like you said, Kristen, really decide, who do I want to be? Like, who do I want to show up as? Who am I identifying myself as? And when you do that, figuring out, well, what do you have to do in order to be that person? What do you have to do in order to get there?
And slowly along the way, you build belief yourself. So you rely on the experts, you rely on other people to show you what's possible. Yeah. But it's not until you start to step into that future identity that you realize, oh, this is working and I am becoming her. So like the easiest example, because I know you do a lot with like health and fitness, is like I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now, like when I started my health journey. Yeah. But I imagine myself being more fit, like who I was when I used to run and walk every day. And I was still an athlete and I'd be running these races. So I envisioned that future Kristen, like getting back to that. And I thought, what does she do? Well, she eats healthier. She doesn't drink as much alcohol. She limits her sweets. She's outside every single day, but also like, what's her presence like, right? She's enjoying time with her kids. She's saying no to certain responsibilities that are taking her away from the time that she is spending with her family. You know, she's more calm, more present, more energized. Well, what is that version of me need? And how can I start doing those things to pull me there? Right. So that version of me pulled me off the couch when I was like, oh, I'm so tired. No, Kristen, that version of you goes on that walk right now. That version of you goes to drink that water. She chooses a healthy protein focused snack versus a bag of chips.
Yeah. So good. I'm curious, when you're thinking about this identity that you're building or this person you're building towards, what is a tangible practice that has helped you or that you maybe coach other women through in order to really envision and step into that? Is it journaling? Is it like listening to yourself in an affirmation?
There's a lot that you can do. So I have something called the SMART step strategy, and it starts with I am statements. So the two most powerful words for your identity are I am. And I know originally when I did this, I was like, well, I am, and I usually just said I'm just a mom.
Yep.
I am just this, right? But I thought, well, or I am, my current state was tired, exhausted, burned out, overwhelmed. Well, how can I shift those statements to more positive ones that I want? So instead of I am tired, I am energized. Yeah. Instead of I am overwhelmed, I am balanced. Instead of maybe I'm too stressed, I'm joyful.
Right.
So those I am statements are the first step. Then create a goal related to that. So I am one that's really popular and probably would relate to a lot of your clients is I am the strongest, healthiest version of myself. Yeah. Which for every single client you have is going to look different. It's also going to look different from me to you to any other woman. Yeah. So what's the specific goal? Is it that you want to lose weight? Is it that you want to move your body every day? Is it that you want to finally see biceps or whatever it is? Fit into an awesome outfit for a date night? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then and I have a SMART stands for an acronym. So the most important is attach meaning to it. So why is it meaningful to you? So that's the M. And then the A are the actions. So what are the specific actions that you're going to take to be the strongest, healthiest version of yourself?
Yeah.
And that
So
could include journal time. It could include putting your phone down, right? It's different for every person.
it is different for every person. And, I love always talking about what are the tangible things you can do, because it's easy to say, okay, we're working towards building this identity in our head of what we're working towards, or we're trying to take these small steps. And I really find value in talking about, well, what are the tangible things we can do? What are the habits? What are the routines? What are the choices? Because that's the thing that will really start to get the ball rolling and build momentum, kind of like you talked about. And so I appreciate you sharing that, Kristen. So
And
helpful.
then the one other thing I would suggest is visualization is so powerful. And we know from brain research that what we imagine in our head and what we visualize in our head, our brain actually doesn't know the difference between reality and the imagined.
Yeah.
And so I use this, I actually do mindset. A lot of my program is mindset coaching, but I also have done it with high school athletes and youth programs that I coach, that I say, your brain doesn't know the difference between you practicing making free throws in your head than you actually going and doing them.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to practice them, but if you can visualize it over and over and over and over, it's the same thing with my speaking, right?
Yeah.
Me becoming a professional speaker, I felt called to do that. I've spoken in front of smaller groups, larger groups in terms of like workshops, but never keynoting. That was a big step for me. And actually I was pretty terrified of it when people were starting to ask me to do this. So I relied on a lot of visualization, because by the time I stood on that stage, I had already done it over 100 times in my head, and my body, my nervous system knew how to respond.
Such a good reminder, and so important for us to remember, because our brain really is a wild place. And it can make up incredible things that can be so valuable. It can also make up incredible things that can keep us very stuck and very paralyzed and very terrified. And so this is just such a great reminder on how our thoughts can really create our reality. And this idea of visualization can be such a powerful practice when we're thinking about so many facets of our life. And I know, Kristen, one of the things that you shared with me too is how we can get caught a little bit in this idea of the someday. And I want to kind of relate this back to this idea of visualization and identity, because I know that I've done this, and I've talked to women about this too. When we talk about goals, when we talk about health, when we talk about where they're going with their job, what they want their relationship to look like, where they want to live, like anything that they might be visualizing or dreaming up about in their life, we also can get caught in this idea of the someday. Right? Like, we believe someday we'll have the time. We believe someday we'll have the energy, or we believe someday we'll be able to focus on X, Y, Z, whether that's ourselves or some sort of goal. And I know that there's kind of this fine balance. Like, that can be a really hard and dangerous place to sit if you get caught too far in this idea of, well, someday it'll happen, or someday I'll figure it out. And I want you to kind of talk a little bit about that. We've talked about visualization, we've talked about identity, we've talked about, really trying to get yourself in the headspace of thinking about who do you want to be, where do you want to go, but how do you also balance this idea of, well, someday I'll get to it, and not too far down that rabbit hole?
I think and I don't know where this saying comes from, but I remember hearing it during my health and wellness, like initial journey, that first 6 months, is if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Right. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again without result. So if you think about those two quotes, along with this idea of someday, one, every day is a gift and tomorrow is not promised.
Yeah.
Two, when you keep saying that someday it will happen, someday just gets pushed further and further and further. And in the meantime, what happens with your own mental, emotional, physical health, it actually gets worse, and it's harder to recover someday.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, think about all the things you sacrificed. So I think about my own journey. When I should have asked for help was during that first year that my baby was a baby, right? Yeah. Mental health support, nutrition support, mindset support. There was a lot that I needed, but I didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 5 years later when I finally asked for help. But at that point, I'd gained 40 pounds. I was in such deep resentment. I had missed out on a lot of experiences with my kids because I physically felt so depleted that I'd often be like, you know what, you go play outside by yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, that's not why I had kids. I didn't have kids to have them go play by themselves.
Yeah.
I with my first two was very active and stayed very healthy. And I would take them to the parks and I'd be on the swings and I'd be running around playing tag with them. But with my third, because I was overweight and exhausted, I wasn't doing those things. And so I had missed out on a lot, right? And I remember seeing that photo. We were on a hike. And during my speaking events, I always show it because I'm like, this looks like a mom that's just hanging back behind her youngest. However, I was in pain. It was the first 15 minutes of the hike. I was the very last one. And I remember crying and being like, how did I get here? Because I knew I wouldn't be able to finish the hike. I'd sacrificed so much and I was missing out on so much. So that someday actually makes you sacrifice so much of your current day and your present state that just pushing it off is more detrimental than anything else.
Yeah. And the biggest thing I want to make sure we recall is that we don't have tomorrow promised. And that's something we really take advantage of. And I think when we're in the thick of it, in motherhood and job responsibilities and everything, we just kind of put this on the back burner and think to ourselves, I'll get to it at some point. I'll get to it someday. At some day, I'll figure out how to make the time, to have the energy, etc. But it has to be the opposite. It really, truly has to be this intentional choice where you prioritize it. And it goes back to what we've already talked about as far as getting deep rooted enough to understand how worth it you are to have that same love and care that you are giving out to everything else. And, you know, Kristen, in your story, I love that you shared about the physical pain that you had felt and how you remember looking back to that point in your journey and how it physically felt so hard to complete the hike and to be actively involved with your family. And I personally relate to that more so on the emotional side. And this is one of those things I want to connect for women too, because I think sometimes it can be very easy to think physically I'm okay, right? But maybe mentally and emotionally, you're really in this place where you have a lot that is weighing you down, just like physical weight does.
Yes.
And this is something that I want to make sure we connect on too, because this also gets very much pushed under the rug. I see it often in conversations I have, and I've had to unpack this very deeply in my own life because mental and emotional weight can be the same, if not even heavier than physical weight. And it all keeps us stuck. It all keeps us feeling like we're not showing up for our life the way we deserve to. We're not pouring into our families the way we know we can. We're not showing up for the impact that we know we're being called to, or whatever it is. And so I want to make sure we're really connecting the dots on all of these facets of health, because every piece of the puzzle matters. And this is the thing that I want all women to hear, because it's not just one thing. We have to be unpacking the full picture of our wellness from the inside out in order to really show up and be the person that we're meant to be. And so I just appreciate you sharing that too, Kristen, because there are just a lot of facets to it that I want women to hear.
There are. And my direct example is that I had gotten myself in like the best shape, right? I'd been working with a fitness nutrition coach and I'd lost 20 pounds. I was feeling more energized. I no longer had brain fog. It was like I was just crushing it physically.
Yeah.
But then I started to realize, why am I still so miserable?
Yeah.
I got the physical results, but why am I still so stressed? Why am I not fulfilled? What is going on around me? And once I took care of the physical, I was like, okay, there's something else.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to dig in and started to become very emotionally aware of like, what are my triggers? What is causing me stress? I always thought it was motherhood and my husband's job. And when I got very clear and very quiet and very emotionally aware, when I went through my day, I realized it was my job.
Yeah.
Even though for years I said, this is my dream job. This is everything I've worked for. This can't be my trigger. No, this is it. But when I stripped everything away, I realized, you know what, there's something here and I have to keep digging in to realize, well, what is it about this job? What can I make changes to? And for myself, where are the boundaries that I need to put in place that I no longer had? What are the conversations with colleagues I need to have? Where am I finding joy, but where am I finding deep stress? And how can I try to resolve that? And I attempted it, but realized I couldn't. And so for me personally, I had to step away from that job. But for a lot of women that I coach, there are things that they have to directly work on with their relationships with their kids, with their marriages, with their career. Some decide that this is the career they want, but there's certain things they need to do to make it work for them. And others decide, actually, there's something else that I want and I need to pursue that, right? And so it's different for every woman. but it's that personalized approach. It's working on yourself in mind, body, and soul so that
Yeah.
you can be the best and bring your best to other people and the world.
So true. And that kind of emotional stripping that you talked about, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you did that work, because I know you can do it in a therapeutic setting. I know you can do it obviously spiritually at a church group. I know that you can do it in isolation on your own through whatever works for you personally. But I am curious, in your experience, what helped you kind of do that deep dive emotional unpacking so you could get to that clarity and awareness?
Yeah, I had some mentors in my life that were really amazing in terms of like mindset support. But because I was starting to be introduced to some of that, I started to dig into podcasts, to books, to research. And like, that's where my professor brain went, was I was like, I want to research all this and then I want to try it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And I learned a lot about emotional awareness. I learned about reframes. I learned about just neuroplasticity and how we truly can change our brains. And I started to practice those things. And I believed that it was possible. I knew that it would take time, just like my physical wellness.
Yeah.
But I knew that I had to try things, the small steps. I had to have a path and a clear like runway of where I needed to go, those action steps and the meaning and my I am statements. I started to think about frameworks. I started to think about all these different things. And that's really where my momentum truly began to like take a hold, because I was then not just working on my physical wellness, I was executing in the intellectual, mental, emotional wellness side of things, which improved my life drastically. Mm-hmm. And now that's what I've packaged into like a coaching curriculum, because I had people see the effects and they were like, teach us what you've learned. And I was like, oh, I don't do that. And they're like, but would you? And I was like, well, enough people asking.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And that's how I created a pilot program and why and how I coach people now.
And the marriage of that, I feel like, is how people really get unstuck. Because your story is a perfect testament of this, of how you started on your health path. You started to work on your physical wellness. You started to lose some weight, but you still found this other layer inside on a deeper capacity, or in a deeper capacity that was but keeping you in this place of, I'm still unfulfilled. Something still feels off. I'm still not connecting the dots. Mm-hmm. And I just love and appreciate how you're really talking about the depth of mental and emotional well-being, because this is some of the most crucial work we all really truly have to do. At some point in our life, we have to choose to do this deep dive work so we can really start to get clear enough to understand who I am, what I need, like who am I meant to be and where am I going? And again, Kristen, just so powerful. I can't thank you enough for your perspective.
Absolutely. And I think the most beautiful thing is that when you start to make changes in your life, there's just this massive ripple effect on everything else. And it not only impacts like how you're showing up in the world, but like in your home, with your relationships with your loved ones, your spouse, partners, your children, in your organizations, your companies, your relationships with friends, extended family. Like, it is wild when you start to work on yourself and you start to be an example of what's possible. Everything starts to change in terms of your perspective and your language and your habits and your routines, and people in your house take notice, but then they also become a part of it. So this has had a huge impact on my marriage and my children. My husband and I both decided to work on our physical health together. So we started to use different routines and practices and mindsets in our household that then we incorporated with our kids. And now seeing them, I'm 5 years into this work, seeing them as teenagers with a really strong mindset, healthy eating habits, resilience that I have never seen in teenagers before. It's wild, but I can attribute it directly to the work that I did. Yeah. And so that impact of like someday, it's also, if you make today the day that you start, it's going to impact your immediate family, your friends, your colleagues in ways that it never would have if you waited a year, 3 years, 10 years down the road.
100%. And one of the things we have to remember that. And I just, again, appreciate you sharing the ripple effect, because it's such a profound thing that we don't always realize is a part of the choices that we're making as women, for ourselves, for our health, for our families, and so much more. And so, Kristen, one last question I want to ask before we kind of move into wrap up is really thinking about the woman that's listening to this that knows that she wants to make some small changes. She wants to make some day today. It's like she's ready to start to get unstuck, but she doesn't know how. Like she's overwhelmed, she's burned out, she's unsure, she can't figure out emotionally and mentally, like maybe what's really causing so much internal stress, kind of like you talked about. What would be the one simple step you would encourage her to take so she can start to get on the path to a different trajectory?
One I would say is just tell yourself you're worth it and then take that step. Like whatever the step is for you, know that it's possible. That's the one thing I hear from my own clients after our very first meeting. I always wrap up is like, how did this conversation support you? And the thing I hear over and over and over is they say, I finally know it's possible.
Yeah.
It's not something that's so distant. I now see that it's possible and that how I'm going to get there. Like that this is actually part of my reality. And there are specific things I can do that fit for my life, the season that I'm in, my season of motherhood, career, family, marriage, whatever it is. Like I can do this. And I want women to hear that. Like you can do this. You've done it, Erin. I've done it. I can name hundreds of women that have done it.
Yeah.
So believe that it's possible and then take action. Like it goes back to the Nike. I don't know if I think it was Mel Robbins did a podcast about like the just do it. The hardest word is the just. That's the hardest part. As soon as you take that step, it's like draw a line in the sand. That's what I tell my clients. Draw a line in the sand and say, I'm stepping over it. Like stepping over it. And guess what? The wind's going to go, that line's going to disappear and you've already done it. But you have to draw that line in the sand and say, yep, I'm stepping it over today. I'm going to invest. I'm going to tell myself I'm worth it. And I believe it's possible. And I'm just going to do it.
I love that so much. And you're absolutely like nail on the head with just literally doing it. And I think, again, we go back to that headspace of what we've talked about, how sometimes we make it up to believe it has to be this huge, hard thing. It doesn't need to be. It can be one small, simple thing that you literally just choose to do. And then you choose the next small thing and the next small thing, and it compounds over time.
Yep.
And again, Kristen, I just can't thank you enough for your incredible perspective today. You are an absolutely amazing guest. So much incredible things that, I know women are going to get a lot of value out of in relation to just how do you press forward? How do you get unstuck? How do you kind of challenge what's in your brain and really work towards this idea of digging into self-worth and believing that whatever you're really working towards or the change that you want to create is possible. And so, Kristen, can you quickly share how people can find you online or connect with you to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You can head to my website. It's just drkristenstrom.com. You can see the different services. I speak to large groups, small groups, schools, companies, conferences on topics related to work-life balance, health and wellness, owning your magic, all based on frameworks and structures that I've developed over the years. And I also do one-on-one group coaching in terms of focusing on your physical, emotional, and intellectual well-being to help you get to wherever your life wants to take you. So that's where you can find me. I did want to leave one last nugget that I think relates to everything that we've talked about, is that oftentimes, and actually every time, change is scary.
Yeah.
There's always that fear. It's just you moving out of the comfort zone to something that's new as you grow. And so when I learned about the stages of growth, I had no idea that the fear zone was the next zone. After you step out of your comfort, the very next zone is the fear zone.
Yeah.
For so many of us, and for myself, I would run away from that. Like, ooh, this feels scary and hard. I'm going, right? No way. But when we know that that's actually just part of every single change and progress of growth, then we know it's there. We can expect it and be like, oh, this feeling that this is a little uncomfortable and hard, or we might be scared of what comes next. That's just normal.
Yeah.
So expect it, bust through it, and know that by learning and using expert advice, working with accountability partners, doing what you need to do in terms of the next step is going to lead you through the fear zone into the growth zone. So when you know that, then you're like, okay, I can't do this.
I love that. And I never even really thought about that, how the fear zone comes right after comfort. And I think one of the things we have to remember is when you feel fear, it's because it's new. It's because it's uncomfortable. It's not because you're not capable.
Yep.
That's the thing we have to stay anchored in when we get to that zone of change, because we can do it. It's just a matter of continuing to push through that uncomfortable fear that we experience. And so, Kristen, so good, my friend. I am so incredibly grateful for you and can't thank you enough for an incredible conversation today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Of course, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I know balancing time and energy can be a challenge, and I'm so proud of you for listening in and investing in your wellness journey. I feel incredibly grateful to connect with you and for the opportunity to share more knowledge, stories, and encouragement related to all things wellness. I would love to hear how this podcast has served you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on either iTunes or Spotify. Your support truly means the world to me and helps me reach more women just like you and me who are looking to transform their health from the inside out. Plus, when you share this episode with a friend, we invite more women in to learn alongside us. What a gift. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better we can do. For ourselves, for our families, and our future. Well done on taking the step towards a healthier, happier you. Until next week, stay empowered and stay well.